Good day to you and welcome to this, the Voice of Freedom. For 31 years, the Voice of Freedom has been coming to people in various parts of this great, wonderful nation. And it seems like we should be out here pounding away 24 hours a day to get the public to realize what is going on. And stay tuned. We have a special guest that has done a lot of research on the economy of our country. Now, you didn't always believe what you believe today about our economy. What on earth got you interested in it? You were just as dumb as the rest of the average citizen. Pardon my language, but...
Well, first of all, I object to that, Michael. Let me just explain it like this, Jim. I was dumber than the average person. That because when I was growing up, right, I had a false world. I had great mom and dad, and they gave us everything that they could, and I had a wonderful childhood. So I never wanted for anything. I thought that the country was the greatest country, which back then I believe it was, but we were always been lied to. Nothing is true, but I would like to go down this road, and we haven't discussed this. So if you guys think I'm out of line, then Michael, that we're going to have to, change the course. I would like to address you now, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been doing this now for 31 years.
Yes.
But would you tell these people how long have you been a pastor of your own church and spreading the word?
I've been a pastor for at least 75 years.
For 75 years,
yes.
That this man here has been going around, and guys like me that I've been doing it for just a fraction of what Jim has done, and I feel beat. And this man here is, he's 91 years old, and Jim, I've always respected you. That's all I heard about when I moved here was Pastor Nichols. And I know this, that I appreciate your years and your effort in this. And it's guys like you, if we had there are a million people like you, that we would have won this battle a long time ago.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your words. I've spent a good part of my life in it. I became a naturalized citizen, and I'm glad I did. I was born, in fact, I was bred, born, buttered, and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan, up in Canada. And that's the Queen City of the Canadian Prairies. But I felt called of God to come down to the U.S., and I'm glad I did. But if I knew the trouble I was going to get into, I don't think I would ever come. But
you made one major mistake.
Just one?
Just one. Meeting the sidekick over here, Michael. No, let me just get started. The last show, Jim, you mentioned the church.
Yes.
And I have to explain this. What I know is money in banking, and I'm not an expert in religion like you are. But there's a story that that must explain. When my brother got married,
mm-hmm.
He got married in Naples, and my mom and my relatives were greatly concerned that Mickey was going to go down there and start problems with the priest that was going to marry my brother. So I had to promise my mother and my brother that I would leave the Catholic priest alone. Don't talk to him. Stay away. When he's in the room, you leave the room. So I agreed to those terms.
Mm-hmm.
And there we are now. I'm just waiting, man. I'm watching. And when I walked in to this church, that I see this good old red, white, and blue flag up there with this gold fringe around it, and this great big eagle, and these gold strands down. And that's all I could see.
Mm-hmm.
Was this flag that is really the United Nations flag. It's got nothing to do with our government, because the Constitution makes it clear, or the laws, what the flag is, and it's not
Yes.
that flag. So I, listened to my mom like a good little boy. Right, I was never good, but I listened to her. Now at the reception, this Catholic priest sneaks out the back door. And I'm at the other door, and I said, this guy isn't getting away with this easily. Yeah, so I ran around, and there he is. He's getting into his car. And I went now to parochial schools my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Not my whole life, but my first 8 years. And I says, Father. So he stopped, and he had a nice big smile on his face. He turned around, and he realized, oh my God, that's Mickey's brother coming over to talk to me, and I heard all about him. Yes, I said to him, I says, Father, do you know who I am? He looks at me, and his smile went now to a frown, and he said, yeah, I know who you are. You're Bobby's brother. And I says, yeah, that's right. I says, Father, I have some questions I want to ask you. Why does the Catholic Church not get up on one Sunday all over the United States and explain what the Federal Reserve is all about?
Mm.
And that you see these movies now like Damien, and where that actor's eyes turn bright red and fiery. I swear, Jim, when this priest looked at me, that's what I saw in his eyes.
Mm.
I mean, he was angry, and his eyes were just glaring red. And I said, why do you support the Federal Reserve? This priest looks at me and barks. He says, because we support the Federal Reserve and we support the New World Order. That's why.
Ooh.
Yeah. And, I walked away from there, and I knew right then and there that the organized religion of this country has to be behind this New World Order, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
They're being played, and they're part of it. And it's very, very hard to go down this road, especially with a guy like you, 75 years of religious teaching, and me. I think it could be now measured in just a couple drops compared to yours.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time. Their main goal is to save souls, and I don't understand why don't they get up and start telling everybody the truth about the banking system, because that is the cause of divorces. That's the cause of the rise in drugs. That's the cause of the rise in prostitution. The money system directly influences everything we do and everything that we have.
Mm-hmm.
We're not free. And Tim, you know what really cracks me up? What they say, Mickey, why do you complain? You live in a nice home. you have a nice car, you have a nice life. Why do you complain? Why? Because the system is wrong, and the system is taking down the greatest government in the history of the world, and I don't want my nieces and nephews growing up in this totally fraudulent system that the bankers dictate whether or not my neighbor is going to have their home. That because I believe that the ability of man is built within him to succeed based upon his ability and based upon his own wealth to achieve whatever goals that he wishes. But people that we hear every day that we have economic freedom. You can't have that as long as you have a central bank. It's just like water and oil. It doesn't mix. Okay? It just doesn't mix. So what they mean by that is, everybody listen to this, that you have freedom. And what they're saying to you is that the freedom that you have is that you don't have to determine what you're going to do to live or raise money on, because we're going to determine that for you. I call that communism. Economic freedom. Yeah, you're free because they don't want us to choose what we want to do. By the control of the money, they control the lifeblood of every single person in this United States and world. There's no such thing as freedom.
That's an awesome position to be in, is it not?
And there's no way out of it unless that we rise up and we educate ourselves and pick up our neighbor and march down these streets and expose this fraudulent system of ours. And I just don't mean the government, Jim. I mean there is nothing about this system that is legal. Mercer County Courts now, they have a judge up there. You know what they're working on? They want the prison system now of Mercer County now. They want to convert it, and they want to privatize it. And do you know who's going to own the prison system? The 3 county commissioners. And do you know who sits on the board? The president judge. And guess what? If they can keep their jail full, and I'm not quite sure whether that is 50% full or 60% full, then the state and federal government will send these guys grants for doing such a good job to put the American people in jail. Now, how bad is that? And then when we're going to go up before this president judge, and I just exposed him last week where I called him a criminal. And there's the commissioners. You can't call him that. Well, that's exactly what he is. He's a criminal. And for you guys to want to privatize the prison system, thus benefiting from somebody else's bad luck, and what do you expect? When you allow the banks to contract the money supply, and how are these people supposed to feed their kids? And years ago, I stopped in to a restaurant right down the road here in Maryland. And I walked in the back there, and there was this guy back there, and he was doing pots and pans. And I went there because I used to be in a wholesale business, and certain merchandise that they were buying off of my firm. So I knew this guy, you know, it's a kid, 18 years old, 19-year-old kid. And I went back one night and I walked back there right in the middle of a drug deal going down. And the dealer looked at him and he got scared. He said, "Is it safe?" man, I'm just happy that I knew this guy. And the dishwasher said, yeah, he's safe, he's cool. So I said to him, don't worry about me. So they gave him the drugs, and money was exchanged hands, and the guy left. And I went over to this young kid, and I looked at him, and I more or less said to him, what's wrong with you? Don't you know that your life expectancy from doing drugs is relatively short? I mean, teens, that surely, you must know what you're doing. And this kid looks at me, and he almost started crying. And what he said to me, he says, Mickey, you have to understand that my father worked his whole life washing pots and pans, and he never enjoyed one day of a good life. So if I could live 3 years or one day and enjoy the good life and have money, that I could do for the first time in my life anything that I wanted to do, and my life is cut short, at least I could say I had one good day. And when he said that to me, I mean, Jim, what could I say? I had nothing to say, and I said to myself, it's all about money.
Yeah.
When these bankers contract the money, and you're sitting there and you have a great idea that you could take that and turn it into a multi-million dollar business, providing that the bank will lend you your own money back and charge you 300 to 400% the interest, and if the banks do not loan you any money, then your business ideal is worthless. You're never going to get it off the ground. So what I'm saying to you guys is, why do we allow a group of bankers from Chase, Manhattan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, to control whether or not we eat bread or steak, where I'm saying that it should be based upon your willingness to work and your ability to make your business grow. It should be based upon those factors, not on the factor as whether the bank is willing to lend you any money, when really it's your own money.
Yes.
And for us to sit back and allow this to go on since 1792, that I think we are the blame. And until we wake up, like I've always said, nothing can or will ever change.
So in other words, if anybody's making any money out of the banking system, it ought to be we, the taxpayer.
Right. It's our money.
Yeah. But we're robbed of that.
Oh, yeah, we're robbed. And it can be real simple. You see, like I have a formula. Let the total supply of money be fixed at a percentage rate of 2, 3, or 4% of total GMP, and we would be inflation proof forever. As the total means of production rises, so should the supply of money, and it has to raise by that equal percentage that the inflation is always under control, and we would be more prosperous than you could ever dream about. And then we'll be sitting here talking about the American dream and not the American nightmare that we are doing now. Is that easy? Listen again.
Amen.
Let the total supply of money be fixed at a 3% of the GNP, and we would be inflation proof, And you know what that means, Jim?
Tell us.
There would be no recession. There would be no people losing their jobs. That we would be able to work and maintain the standard of living that we are capable to provide for ourselves. And what would be the matter with that? And isn't or wasn't that the intention of the guy upstairs?
Oh, yeah.
It's real simple. But like you said it last week, we're so far off base, Jim, and you know this better than anybody. And for me to be sitting here talking to you, that you forgot more things about God or religion than what I'll ever know. I mean, all I got to say is, people, you better wake up. And if we're going to control this, we have to take those steps.
Amen.
And some of these steps, they may be hard.
Yes.
But how much more harder, Jim, did you pay for doing this for 75 and doing these shows for 31 years? And I can honestly say that I don't think you made one dime yet, in 31 years doing all these shows.
No.
That have you.
No, I've never taken.
And how much money did you really spend of your own money, to educate these folks?
Everything I've had has gone into
That's exactly. Yeah, just like Michael, right? Just like that myself.
Yes.
Why do we do it, and we continue to get slapped every single day of our face? And I swear, you know what I say, Michael? I'm getting tired of this. This is going to be my last night. But then when I wake up, now I've been doing this for 25 years, 30 years, but every day I wake up, I got to try it again.
What else can you do, right?
Yeah, but how can you do it for 75 years, though?
Trying to save America. That's what it's about. Trying to save America before it goes over the cliff. With these crazy people we have in government. Obama, Holder, all of them. I swear they're all communists. Department of Justice. It's crazy.
And I believe that there is a conspiracy, and I believe, Jim, that it involves organized religion.
Well, somehow or other, we're going down the wrong road. And most people bought Mr. Obama's promise he would change things. Yeah, he changed things.
That's right.
He got us further down the road faster than anybody else ever did. And that's the wrong road.
And he's not finished yet, by the way.
No.
No, Michael knows all about that.
Oh, yeah. He's a fine lad. Yeah. He should be impeached for treason, him along with the Federal Reserve bankers. But the government can't do it and won't do it because it's controlled by the money boys. The bank runs this country, as you said, as a corporation. And all you can do is educate people, try to get them prepared. That's what this is about. Give them information so they can prepare themselves for what's coming. At least save yourself and your children, because if you let it go in one ear and out the other, you don't have a chance.
Oh, yeah. There, you forgot to let them know now. I like that great big that guy, that newspaper man says. Now for the rest of the story. I mean, Michael, but you forgot to tell these guys about the foreign troops that's going to be marching up and down our streets.
Oh, you mean when they declare martial law?
Yeah, right. Give us the rest of the story.
Well, this is leading towards all these banks, and all this nonsense is leading towards a world government. And they're going to put America in a corner. Like I said, they'll collapse the banks. You have no jobs, no money, no nothing. And, of course, they can't have American troops parading up and down America because they won't fire an American citizen. But you can bet there'll be Chinese. They've been here training for years already, and we'll probably be over there. But, yeah, that's what they're up to.
We're already over there.
Well,
I want to explain now that I have a real close friend of mine that's a colonel, was a colonel, in the United States Army. And I asked her for years, What do you do in the Army? Oh, well, I'm low level. I'm maintenance supply. I ship food over here and stuff. I said, okay, I believe that, right? So about 7, 8 months ago, he calls me on the phone and says, Mickey, I'll explain to you that what I did, and now I could finally level with you, what I've been doing in the Army. He said that they flew him down to Washington, and they're sitting in this room there with generals and admirals, and there was a guy there, representatives from Michael's friend Obama, is sitting in there, and a general asked him, he said, Colonel, if you're giving the order to fire upon the American citizen in the street, can or will you follow the order? So this guy knew it was coming now. This is nothing new. Okay, Jim, this is nothing new. We knew it. They knew that. So he stopped, and he's sitting in his chair, and it seems like that hours, 15 seconds now, when you're under the pressure, it just grows and grows and expands. And he turns around and says, General, yes, I could fire. But instead of firing upon the people, I'm going to direct my soldiers to fire upon the people that gave me the order to fire. Do you know what the guy said to her?
No.
Colonel, please step in this next room. There's your discharge orders there. Sign that and get on the plane, and we're flying you back to Andrews Air Force. No, at Patterson's. What's in Jersey?
Patterson, I guess.
Right at Patterson. You're out of the Army. So then when he gave me a call, this is exactly what he said. Now I could tell you what I've been doing. Do you know that the Boston Marathon, that when they were bombed, and did you see all those police vehicles? They weren't Boston police. That was the United States military getting the people ready for troops to go in and to start confiscating their guns. And I was supposed to be there and one of the leading personnel in that fiasco.
And the American people, it's hard for them to grasp this, to understand it, that the worst problem in this country is whore government. I mean, it's absolutely against the people, and it's going to destroy them.
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to say. And I started the last show, and when you do these shows, I mean, we just go on. What I'm saying is, don't concern yourself with the terrorists in the Middle East. Don't look upon these guys as doing any great harm to us. What I say is that the people that you got to worry about are the people down in Washington, D.C. They're the terrorists. They're the ones that's doing all the harm, and not just to us, but all over the world. Don't worry about those people in the Middle East. All they want is to be left alone. And we have to, let's put the blame where it really belongs, and that's at the feet of the American government.
Okay, what can we do about it? We the people.
Revolution sounds nice.
Well, I think that's a little bit abrupt. But the way I look at it, Si, I'm against that. What I support is that we have to find a key that unlocks the door, that these people are willing to study for themselves and to make their own minds up. And that's the only way that we can ever win this. And I'm saying this, that there are lawsuits floating around, that there are fraud suits, FDCPA suits, and every foreclosure, listen close, every foreclosure in this United States can and should be stopped. All you got to do is track us down, give us a call, and study, and you will see too that every foreclosure can be stopped.
So they can be stopped.
Oh, yes. Jim, there's no original notes. It's all been fraud. Monetization, securitization, it's all fraudulent.
Well, I actually took action on that 4 years ago. I refused to pay any more on my mortgage because I had lots of money.
Who has supposedly taken an oath to defend and protect us. They are guilty of the same crimes that they swore to protect us from, Jim. They're guilty of it.
Isn't there some decisions made by the courts and where the bankers themselves have admitted their whole system is based on fraud?
Well, yeah, the banks are getting fined, but all they got to do though is to cash in a bond, and they can create as much money as they want to give it to the government. It doesn't cost them a dime, all except the cost of picking up an ink pen, and the ink, and the cost of the paper. That's all it is, Jim.
And then they get paid
And
up.
then they charge the people. Oh, there's another thing is this. That your city now, they need money for streets. Okay? I moved into my house that I was paying $6,000 then for taxes. I'm looking at a bill this year for $13,000. And all they got to do is, everybody listen, what your local city, the government is going to do is create a bond. They're going to sell that bond mainly to a bank, and the bank is going to accept the bond and monetize it and give the city the same amount in a check that the bond is worth, which is nothing more than an even swap. And now the people of that community will pay literally millions and millions in taxes, and the bank never gave them one damn dime. But yet we have to go out and sweat like goyams just to pay these bankers back money from our sweat. And all they do is sit in their air-conditioned office and pick up an ink pen and write a number into a check and give it to us. And yet we must be goyams because we really think that they're giving us money. Now, you know what goyim means is that we're a good slave. And all you people that you pay your bills on time, yeah, your credit is great, but you know what that is? That you're a good slave because you pay these bankers money and they never lent you a dime, but yet you think your credit rating is good. And you know what a banker said to me once? Right, this just happened a couple weeks ago. Right, I was telling you, Michael, about this. Right, that the banker said, Mickey, that if you came in here that with 15 cents and wanted a dime loan, do you know that I couldn't give it to you because you're blackballed? And everybody thinks that Equifax and TransUnion, they're not the only credit reporting guys. The banks have a secret one that nobody knows about, and it's in-house, where they got me blackballed, where they report their own credit scores to get people like Michael and Mickey Paletta from ever dealing with the bank. Yeah, but what they don't understand is we don't want to deal with you crooks.
That's right.
Okay?
They're
but,
doing us a favor.
Guys, there is a secret the agency, in-house banks that run their credit reports, and it's against the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And do you know that we approached the FBI with this crime? And do you know what they said? Mickey, what difference does it make where the money came from? You got the money, you got your house, didn't it? Hey, yeah, old Sherlock Holmes there, but what about all the interest, that they're going to be robbing us from?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, Jim.
Again, people don't know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, right. There's another thing. Now, if people don't know this, but most people believe when you go in to a banker, oh, Mr. Banker, that I would like to pay off this loan for $5,000. And everybody thinks, oh, well, that's a good guy. Now, he just paid off his loan, and now that banker has $5,000 more money in which that he can make additional loans. How sweet of that man to do that. But the ironic part of it is that when you pay off a loan or pay on your loan at the bank, that you are actually decreasing the money supply, because the money that you're giving the bank, you're only paying off your own loan that the bank owes you. Now, how bad is that? When you pay off your bank loan, the bank does not loan that the money has to be decreased because the money never existed. Now, Mickey, now, come on now. That's pretty far-fetched. But there's a book now that was written by Kleiss, and this was used for master's degrees from Yale, Harvard, Youngstown State, Penn State, which is the Wharton School of Business. And on page 144, Kleiss and Kammersheen writes, most people suppose that when a bank makes a loan, that the bank lends its customers deposits. However, no bank ever lends its customers deposits. So where does the money come from? Everybody listen up. You are the lender. When you gave the bank your promissory note, the bank monetized that and created the money out of your own promissory note and handed it back to you, and now they call it a loan. And you people, you go to work every day for what? Just to pay the homage to your masters because you're good slaves, and you're working away just making the bankers richer.
Okay. Here I buy a home. We'll say it's a $200,000 mortgage on it. Okay. Now, on that $2,000 mortgage, which I give a promissory note that I'm in debt to a certain financial institution. Now, the big question is, what does the bank or that financial institution do with my $200 note?
Or your $200,000 note, right,
Yeah,
Jim?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, yeah, $200,000. Basically, we have to understand that when you gave that bank that note with the dollar amount on it of $200,000,
Yes.
that is the same effect of you handing the bank $200,000 in cash from your hand.
Yes.
So what the bank is going to do is just like they always do. They take your note and they're going to deposit that into a bank's asset account, and it's going to be a debit for $200,000. Now they have to comply with GAAP. So what they got to do is for every debit there has to be a corresponding credit. Now they credit bank liability demand deposit account for $200,000, proving that they owe Pastor Jim for his $200,000 deposit. Okay, and then when it comes time to pay Michael for the home, they go into your checking account that you don't even know exists and create a check from your account for $200,000 and give it to Michael. And when really it's your own money. And now, do you know that you signed a cognizant note where that you now gave the bank the rights to foreclose on you if you don't pay them the $200,000 plus $300,000 or $400,000 in interest? And let me ask you, are you a goyim? Are you a good slave? If you pay the banker back $200,000 and $300,000 in interest, that I would say this, that you probably are not a good slave, that someone might say that you may border on maybe an idiot. Okay, look, if only we knew what we were involved with, it would be procedurally and substantively unconscionable. And do you know what that latter means? That you got to be an idiot to give your house away to a bank free of charge, and then you swear that you're going to pay the banker back $400,000 to $600,000 in interest, and if you don't, I give you the rights to foreclose on my home. And then you got all these lawyers out there, these shysters, now that's hiding behind the bushes, just waiting for the banks to contract a money supply so they can pounce on the least sophisticated consumer like Jim, who has spent 75 years studying religion, and now some high-priced law firm is trying to steal their home just for their own financial unjust enrichment. And they call this the legal system. It's a criminal system.
Well, not only that, see, that's one thing that made me make a decision. What are they doing with my equity money? $250,000. What are they doing with it? They're loaning it out,
No,
supposedly.
They don't do that.
They leverage it?
No. I remember now what Clay said. Most people suppose that a bank lends its customers' deposits. However, no bank ever lends its customers' deposits. Okay?
What do they do with it?
It's on their books. And the president needs a bonus, doesn't he? And they got to hire 14 more girls. And they need to build 3 more banks right down at the corner, right across from the Sheetz gas station. Jim, it's all a big facade. It's all a fraud. And if and when the American people wake up, you got to go back and study the 1300s and 1400s. You know what they used to do with bankers then when they found out that they were stealing them blind? Exactly the way they're doing it today. Right? You know, did you know they hung them and they put them on a horse and ran them out of town, never to be seen again? Because if we see you again, you won't ever ride a horse again, buddy. Okay? Now, that's how they handled it in the 13th and the 1400s. You know, but now we got organized religion not only be involved with banks, but some of them may even own major shares of stocks or even have their own banks. And all the banks, because of the Monetary Control Act of 1980, now have the power to create money based upon promissory notes. This whole system is fraud, and people say, and I'm not embarrassed now to go down this road. I told Michael this many years. Mr. Griffin, that he called me at home back in 2003 or 4. Now that's right, that's the creature from Jekyll Island guy. Calls me on the phone and says, Mickey, I understand that you're now that you're helping people get out of debt. But you know you can't do that because you're going to bring down the system? Mr. Griffin, what do you think I want to do? Okay, so that, there's a point to this. And everybody listen, why was Griffin's book sold by every major retail bookstore in the world? And now we have Mullins's The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. And Mullins has stayed at my house, and he's been at your house. He's been on your shows for many, many times.
Yes.
You know what he said? They won't have my books in their stores because I tell the truth. Why won't they have my books in their stores? Because they don't want my information out there. And why won't the Sharon Herald? And why did the Patriot News say to me, Mickey, we can't run your story. We're not going to run your Patriot News story on the Federal Reserve. But yet, the York Dispatch, there were a guy there by the name of Dennis, and his assistant editor was Michael Smith. And I went there one day, it's called the editor's board, where candidates would sit down and meet the board.
Mm-hmm.
Now Dennis looks at Michael Smith and said, Michael, what should we do with Mickey's Federal Reserve story? Michael Smith said, I think we ought to run it. And Dennis looked at me and says, Mickey, we're going to run your story. We're going to give you front page. So I came home, excited like a little boy with the lollipop. My first one. Yeah, I called Mullins up. I called Epperson up. I called up Dr. Larry Bates. I says, guess what? They're running my story. Right, Mullins says to me, he says, Mickey, I wish they do, but they will never run your story.
Mm-hmm.
So I called the York Dispatch the next week, and I asked if Dennis was there. No, he's not. What time do you expect him in? He no longer works here. Then may I please speak to Michael Smith? I'm sorry, Michael no longer works here. But they were both fired because they were going to write my story on the Federal Reserve. And I mentioned last week a guy's name, John Kirkpatrick. He's the editor of the Patriot News. And I went around and around with him, and he said to me, and look, I got witnesses. Right? I got witnesses that will swear every day. This is exactly what he said to me. I don't give a GD how many names you get on a petition. I'm not going to run that story, and you couldn't get 100 people to sign that. So my people walked at beauty shops, a salon, malls, and we walked in there, maybe a week later, with 1,700 signatures. And that's when the editor, John Kirkpatrick, from the Patriot News said to me, and it's a quote, right, is it okay if I say it? I don't give a goddamn how many names you get. We're not running that story. Okay, now, was Mullins right? And what I want to ask each and every one of you, why is Griffin's book in every major retail store, and Griffin don't even approach the promissory note issues? He does not approach monetization. He does not approach securitization. And if we understand both of those, and we understand that no bank has the original notes because they've been monetized and securitized. And, guys, it's like this. Your notes are transformed by the Depository Trust Corporation at 55 Water Street in New York, where your negotiable instruments are transformed into a stock certificate and placed into a trust, making all foreclosures all across the United States illegal because the debt collectors are going in, lying through their teeth, and the corrupt judges are allowing this to go through. Oh, you have the original note, that Your Honor. They don't have the original note here. And the uniform form of commercial code 3-309 and 3-401 and 3-303, and I can go on for hours, states that you must have the original note and prove valuable consideration. Judge, you can't allow these guys to foreclose on me because they haven't produced the original note. And under the UCC 3-501, I deserve the right to inspect the documents. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we're going to grant the foreclosure, and we'll throw you out of your own house maybe in a couple months. But I'm just doing my job. He's doing his job for who? For the bankers, maybe. But what about his oath? Mm-hmm. Okay? They don't follow the Constitution, Jim. They don't even teach it any longer in their law schools. The Constitution doesn't even exist anymore because there's no American government.
Hello.
Right? It's that simple.
Hello.
A shocker that I got was I found that the assets that these banks had so proudly displayed, so many billions of dollars in assets. And what were those assets?
Mortgage notes.
Mortgages.
99% of the bank's assets.
Yes.
99% are comprised of people's promissory notes. Now, where did I get that? People from the Federal Reserve owned bank. It's everywhere.
And so when we have an economic squeeze and people can't pay their mortgage, you have bank foreclosures that create a horrible monstrosity that we call our money system.
Yeah, let me go back now. Let's talk about the FDC, the FDT.
FDIC.
No, that's something different. This here now is the Depository Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I asked the Federal Reserve this, and I also asked the Securities Exchange Commission. I said, is it a fact that the DTC, who receives everybody's negotiable instruments, and don't they have the power to transform those all into stock certificates? Yes. And isn't it a fact that a Depository Trust Corporation is owned by the Federal Reserve? So when the government defaults and the DTC owns everybody's stock, and where do you think the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund gets their fund or gets their money to fund all the world projects? From our stocks, people. From your stocks. And where I'm going with this is when the government collapses, and being that the DTC owns everybody's stock, then a Federal Reserve, I want to ask you one thing. And I want to ask you one thing, Social Security or Securities Exchange Commission. When that time happens, can't the Federal Reserve just simply foreclose on the entire country and assets of the American people? Answer from both of those folks was yes. So, if this doesn't excite you people to get off of your backsides and put that Pepsi down and put down that bag of potato chips and join us and get to work, then maybe that you should run out to the store and buy another Coca-Cola and get an extra heavy bag of chips, because when the system goes down, you won't be able to get another Pepsi or a bag of potato chips ever again. And make sure that every bite that you take, out of those Lay's potato chips, I hope it lasts you for a lifetime, because the time is not too far off where you're going to wish that you had this country back. And it is your fault that we've lost this.
It's quite a disturbing figure when you study the whole thing through, isn't it?
What it is, Jim, is a conspiracy day after day, and they could only do that and pull the wool over our eyes because the American people are allowing this to happen. There's a story now that Franklin said when he walked out of Independence Hall. He was supposedly asked, "What type of a government did you give us, Mr. Franklin?" Franklin looked at her and said, "We gave you a constitutional republic. That's if you can keep it." Boy, those are some powerful words, but until that you understand what those words and what a constitutional republic is, and I hate to shock all of you, but we don't have a democracy. Right? That's one form of government that our founding fathers refused to give us, was a democracy. But yet your history books that teaches our kids every day, we have a democracy. We don't have a democracy. Wake up, put the potato chips down.
Well, it's kind of interesting. We've gone way over time, but we'll be playing the whole story, and there's a lot more could be added. What would you advise people to do that have trouble?
Well, but with the mortgages,
Yes.
my advice there is to get a hold of me, and keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer. I do not practice law. I advise you to go out and hire a lawyer. That's if you can find one, which I know you can't, but go try.
Yeah.
And give me a call. My own phone is 717-979-3061, or you could reach the production crew at 717-903-3061. And I want to ask you, is there another group out there that will give up their home phone numbers? I don't think so. Call me. We have nothing to hide. They do.
Well, thank you. And where's my co-host here?
I'm falling asleep. You going to end it with a prayer or what?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I try to end every program with a challenge to you, the listener. What are you doing about the mess we're in? And that's the reason we're in the mess we're in, is because we, the citizens, don't know what's going on. We have to learn what our God-given freedoms are and start standing up for them. So let's do that. God was recognized by our founding fathers. They lived their life as Christians should live, although there were some imitators and so on. But there is the genuine product around, So become genuine, become honest with your God and yourself, and start standing for the things that will bring this country back to the fame it once had. God help us to do that. Now, Father, we admit as a citizen and citizens of this country, we have ruled you out of our life. You cannot be mentioned in the public square, and we have done this deliberately. Our courts have violated their oath to support and defend our Constitution. So forgive us, our people, and through thine infinite mercy, somehow, through the Holy Spirit, bring this country back to the place where you are recognized in its proper spot. Help us to do what we as citizens should do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
That was excellent, Jim and Mickey. And we're going to ask the Lord, hey, send cash.
Amen.